Rockstar Games, one of the biggest names in video game history. There was a time when these guys would put out a wide variety of games on a semi-regular basis, and then GTA 5 came out. Grand Theft Auto 5 has been the Grand Theft Auto game ever since I was in high school. I was still learning quadratic polynomial graphs and thesis statements when this game first came out, you know what I'm saying? This was out before the PS4 came out, okay? That's how old this game is. I can still remember when they delayed the game to September because Rockstar hates children and wants to distract them from their studies. They could have released it in the summer, but no, they had to push it into the middle of math class. Now that the game is a decade old, it has sufficiently aged such that I can say I have nostalgia for it. It was a while before I could actually play it myself though, because I had the misfortune of being born to the only two parents in the world who actually read the ESRB rating on the front of the box. And you might say, but Bino, weren't you like 15 back then? Nope, doesn't matter. The box says 17, not the same. Now looking back as an adult, that might well have been the responsible and correct thing to do. But when you're in high school and you're not allowed to play a video game that everybody else is playing, that's basically the same as living in a dictatorship. At least that's how it feels in your head. The moral of the story is that everybody is stupid until they hit 25-ish. Putting myself in the shoes of a responsible parent, I can definitely understand the anxiety. You know, GTA has always been famous for controversy, even to the point that they had like congressional hearings over it, and I can still remember this game specifically making headlines because of the infamous interactive torture scene where these government spooks have you torture a dude for information that he would have told you anyway. It sure is a good thing that this is a work of fiction and any similarities to real life events or persons, living or dead, are entirely coincidental, huh? I did eventually get a used copy on the PS3 in like 2014-ish and beat it in secret, and at the time, I thought it was incredible. And even though I have grown far more critical of the game in recent years, I will never forget what a big deal it was. This game sold more copies and made more money in 3 days than some entire developers do in their entire lifespan. And this is why GTA 6 will never actually get released. I feel like whenever I talk about GTA 5, I'm criticizing the mission design or some aspects of the writing, but today I'm shifting my focus to the good stuff. This is a very special game to me, despite my grievances, and the day after its anniversary, I would very much like to celebrate the things that it did right. And even 10 years later, it has some very impressive qualities, like the open world itself. Grand Theft Automobile the 5th is not only impressive in terms of size and scope, but also the little details. It really does feel like a true-to-life location to such an extent that even open-world games coming out today are struggling to keep up. In a lot of ways, it's rivaled only by Rockstar's own Red Dead Redemption 2. What was really impressive was the variety of landscapes. San Andreas 9 years earlier had a remarkable variety of locale, not only with the big cities, but also the wooded areas where you find Bigfoot. But that was a PS2 game, so it could only have 2 graphics at a time. GTA 5, by comparison, has 5 graphics, and I think the results speak for themselves. When it came out, the most detailed open world that I knew of was GTA 4, and I guess Red Dead 1, although I didn't play that one until a while later. I could only imagine how realistic games might look in the future. I still remember looking at those GTA 4 mods where they turned up the reflections really high and they were like, GTA 5 graphics, not clickbait. And of course it was clickbaity as fuck, and the cycle repeated with GTA 5. Needless to say, I could not believe how good the environments looked in 5. Soaring above Los Santos in a helicopter with the sun and the clouds and the fog, the reflection on the water, it was incredible. Looking at these big mountains in the distance that you could actually climb and the more foresty areas on the ground. Driving all the way back to Los Santos from Blaine County as Trevor through the dirt hills looking out at this enormous city. It was something else. I mean, like, especially when most of the only other games you were playing at the time were on the Wii, you know, this was worlds apart. I think the real game-changing element of the graphics for me was how good the character models and animations looked. GTA 4 was already very impressive and looked far better than anything I had seen previously, but the thing that aged the worst by far was the character models. Perhaps it's a result of the uncanny valley effect, but human likeness seems to be the thing that ages the most poorly in any video game. GTA 5's character models and animations made GTA 4 almost look like a PS2 game, and if it's not clear, that's derogatory in this context. It's remarkable just how high and how quickly it could jump back then. That was a 5-year difference between games. Today, the improvements to visuals between subsequent releases are becoming more and more marginal. You can perceive the improvements if you're an experienced audience member, but there is no question that for a generational leap, those improvements are starting to seem less and less substantial. The point I'm trying to make is GTA 5 is from a different era where every single improvement felt like a dramatic leap forward. These two games are from the same console generation. Not every element of the game's visuals holds up to a 2023 level of scrutiny, but it's remarkable how close it gets in the right moments. I was also impressed by the acting and the dialogue. I feel like a lot of the games I was playing when this game came out, when they decided to be story and dialogue heavy, it was either full of awkward scenes that weren't localized super well, or it was really quippy one-liner Borderlands style dialogue about butt unicorns or whatever the fuck. So, from my perspective, GTA was on par with like a legitimate gangster movie.
You ever want to keep it in the United States?
Sure, take what you can carry.
Yeah, it's not perfect. You still have shitty jokes aimed at 12-year-olds who really should not be playing the game, but when the characters start talking to each other about their experiences and their past and their history, it feels like it could be a movie. Rockstar was already ahead of the curve with GTA 4. I remember Donkey praising The Last of Us for potentially being the first game where characters talk and act like people, but what's funny about that is a lot of the points he made could equally apply to GTA 4, which came out 5 years earlier.
When people actually talk to each other, the tempo of the conversation is very sporadic. We interrupt each other.
Shut the fuck up!
I'm begging you.
Said, shut the fuck up!
Please don't do this.
We talk over each other. We respond non-verbally. Sometimes we don't respond at all because we weren't paying attention.
Ramen! Are you sleeping, you fat fuck? Come on!
And this is probably even more true of GTA 5 because the game has actual graphics now. And yeah, people who have actually looked at the story critically will tell you that it's kinda stupid, or at least stupid adjacent. In particular, the Death Wish ending is a fucking ballistic contrivance that ends on a far more idyllic note than any of the characters probably deserve. But I mean, at least it's stupid enough to be funny. The missions, although pretty easy and linear and have very little room for creativity, to their credit, are still very cinematic. I can definitely see why they went in this direction. On top of games in general becoming far more cinematic by this time, previous GTA games had frequent abrupt spikes in difficulty that sometimes feel like the playtesters were fired before the game even started development. So, to see this game be far more forgiving was actually kinda refreshing. And in spite of their linearity, there are missions where the first time you play them, you cannot predict how it's gonna play out. Take this one for instance. It starts with Michael getting into a fight with his son for being a lazy ass and playing Call of Duty all day. That turns into a bike race over a new television. Then when you finish the bike race, Jimmy confesses that the real reason he brought you all the way out here is because Tracy is doing drugs with a bunch of criminals and goons on a yacht.
Actually, it's all happening right out there.
What?
So you swim over to the yacht and take her back to land on a jet ski while getting shot at. If you strip it down to its bare bones, yeah, this is a predictable GTA mission where something goes wrong and you're getting shot at, but if you actually examine all the components and the way they are delivered, this is like straight out of a movie. And I feel like the game is very aware of that. And while its movie-like qualities are the thing that sometimes gets the most criticism, it does do it pretty well in the best of times. Sometimes I like to think that GTA 5 is the movie that Michael always wanted to direct, you know what I mean? He's a big movie nerd, always watching some old action shit, thinking he's Bruce Willis in Die Hard, and then half the game he actually gets to be that guy, until he gets captured and thrown in a meat locker and almost cut in half with a saw. Everyone loves to talk about how fun it is to run around and blow stuff up in this game, and yeah, that is really fun, but even just walking around in the world and soaking in all the details and going, holy shit, they actually made this? As gamers, you know, we love to complain and nitpick things to shit, but there was once a time where we could only dream of games of this size and scope. Games like this are the reason we get entitled, because they have such a dramatically high production value, but we must always remember that these games will always be the exception and not the rule. If this were the rule, I would not be talking about it 10 years later. And of course, as a 10-year-old game, GTA 5 has been surpassed in many respects. Games like Metal Gear Solid 5 and Breath of the Wild are far more open to experimentation than GTA 5 ever was, and Red Dead 2 has graphics that look like real life, but its meticulously detailed open world design still stands very close to the top of the pile, like top 5 at least. There are more subtle details in one street corner than Saints Row 5 has in like the entire game. The world building of GTA 5 is perhaps one of its most remarkable traits too. They have their own celebrities and celebrity drama, their own conspiracy theorists and cultists. They have TV with 2 entire channels and a movie theater playing War for the Planet of the Apes. This one doesn't have Andy Serkis in it though. I think this might be a different version, but there are still new things in this game that I'm discovering today, like 10 years later. I beat this game 4 times over 10 years at least, and I still haven't experienced everything it has to offer. There was once a time when games like GTA 5 seemed impossible, and thinking that this was 10 whole years ago that it came out, it makes me feel old, but also really nostalgic for a time when everything seemed so new and groundbreaking. Maybe that's the real reason I want to see GTA 6 so bad, because I want to recapture that overwhelming sense of astonishment that comes with playing such a ridiculously huge game like this. The thing about GTA 5 is that it had the misfortune of being the GTA game for 10 straight years. It has had to carry the mantle for longer than any of the previous titles, and for that reason, I think the game has been opened up to far more scrutiny than its predecessors. I can definitely sympathize with the resentment that started to fester towards this game after watching it get no single-player DLC and be milked for GTA Online monies for years. But at the same time, I can still remember a game that was new and groundbreaking and everybody was talking about. Time does not stand still for the video game medium, and there have definitely been better video games since GTA 5, but I can still see myself revisiting this game numerous times in the future. So even if it's a day late, I'd like to wish a very happy 10th birthday to GTA 5, to Trevor, to Franklin, and Michael, and I guess Lester too. He can come, I guess. And Rockstar, please don't take another 10 years to make GTA 6.